You are ready.
Okay.
I am here for you. Okay, let's go.
Hello and welcome. We're good. It's on. So this is our first platform together behind the scenes on a live Solutionary TV presents Ascension series. So we're working out a few of the kinks here, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Irvin.
Welcome to Solutionary TV and Ascension series. I am currently being my best technological wizard as I am paying attention to a YouTube live that is telling me that it's waiting on me, and I want to make sure that it actually is indeed live. Genesee, my brainiac compadre, does it look from your end as if we actually are streaming at this moment? Because on my end it is not giving me that verification.
So you are on the YouTube channel and it never clicked over?
I am on the YouTube channel and it actually is saying offline, and it says waiting for Dr. Tatiana Irvin at 7 p.m. So I think I need to press play. Is that correct?
Nope, it shouldn't, because I should be streaming for us.
Okay.
So...
well, then you know what? I'm going to trust that we are streaming.
Well,
it's right now saying, it says not currently receiving data for the stream. If you believe this is incorrect, make sure you're sending a stream that is configured just with the stream key. But then again, that's what my screen says.
Oh yeah, we're live. We are live. I love this. This is amazing. So let's just start in and just be our goofy selves, because this is why the people are tuning in, right? We have been setting this up all day. Yeah, you say it. I heard.
I'm going to stop staring at the screen then.
I know, right?
I'm just going to talk to our audience. Listen, you seekers, you black sheep, those of you that have felt a little out of sorts, those that have not been able to be an immediate complement to our society and its systems by falling into line and following the status quo and kowtowing to authority. This is a place for the rebels and those that have never seen our world as true and right and pure as we believed it should have been. And there are many, many reasons why that's true, as we cumulatively, collectively chose to descend into matter, into density, into 3D, and with that take on the shroud of the veil that just about every single one of us are impacted by to some degree, including Genesee and I, and are here to discuss what we can do to poke holes in it and to move through it and to reclaim so much of our multidimensionality and divinity. We still respect and acknowledge that this was a choice. If I say anything tonight that will touch you and give you a sense of belonging and purpose here in this realm, because many of us have wanted to escape it for some time. In the memoir that I shared going on 2 years ago, The Reluctant Intuitive, it was a hard book to write, and The Reluctant Intuitive is exactly what defined me. I hit several times in my prepubescent and teenage years and even into adulthood where I was ready to check out, because the veil is thick, it is challenging, the density of this planet is real. Your moments of desperation, your moments of wanting to opt out, your moments of depression, anything that you've gone through, we validate, we acknowledge it, and you're courageous. And those that have gone beyond the veil and come back in your death experiences, those that have spoken through the ears and the eyes of angelic beings that have brought beautiful guidance and messages to us, have said that this is the hardest sphere in our existing universe. This is the toughest planet. You came to the PhD planet. I used to call it the dummy rock. And I learned it really isn't. It's actually the place to come and be part of that soulful refiner's fire. So welcome back to the understanding and the appreciation that you're not alone. You never have been, no matter how isolating that illusion has felt. Ascension Series is about you and about each member of humanity coming back to a place where we recognize that we are one united consciousness, and that we are a beautiful fractalization of that united consciousness. And at this pivotal time, which I, having studied my entire life, the esoteric philosophy and the histories of the mystery schools, and now the merging concepts of astro and quantum physics, and the beautiful marriage between the two, where they're finally communicating with similar language to be able to give us some mosaic pieces that blend together into a ribbon of harmonious collective communication. We know we're in a shift. And in this shift, Ascension is not only available as it always has been, but we are getting an assistant grace to be able to help every single one of us become closer to who we actually are, our inherent divinity that is multidimensional, that is completely connected, it is whole and unified, and within that unification and integration of our wholeness in Divine Blueprint, we're able then to move forward and see our connection with the rest of collective humanity. So society is getting this grace, we are getting this grace. Tonight we wanted to talk, we wanted to share some of the amazing sensory experiences that many are having, and we welcome you to the share. We welcome you, please, to share what you're experiencing. But what Jenessee and I have to offer might ring true for many of you. So we're going to start with this vulnerable sharing. What is it to go through not feeling as locked into the address that is the 3D expression of your body? And what is it to feel that veil starting to be peeled away? Maybe because the shamanic resonance is high on a given date. Maybe because you've been in deep meditation. Maybe you have been through some fasting and some clearing, and somehow you're more permeable to those other realms. Whatever that motivation that brought you into that lucid state happens to be, there are changes and shifts that we are all becoming more and more aware of. So I'm going to welcome Jenessee, who is quite the cosmonaut, an explorer, as she has been in multiple bodies through multiple planetary spheres to better understand her own soulful multidimensionality. And invite you, Jenessee, please share with our viewers so that we can get that dialogue going. What does it start to, quote unquote, feel like? What is the sensory experience of welcoming yourself into not just being in that safety and that lockdownness of this 3D address, and the kind of trust that it creates, the kind of vulnerability that it creates?
Thank you. What an expansive question. So as you were asking that, right towards the end, the first thing that came in for me was it's a process. And as we go through and identify this and speak to the different collectives here that are also going through the ascension process, I think we have to maybe break it down by energy body. So for me, the first process was identifying what densities I held in my physical body. And then once that process was, I had moved through that entire process, and I used chakras to move through the process every single time, and maybe we can get more into that or not. But so basically the physical body was the first sensory experience that I had to move through and transition and shift. And Tatiana, like you have explained in your book, I had similar experiences from the age of 5 to 21 where I was basically being triggered crisis after crisis moment to release what densities were being kind of locked within my physical body. And so I manifested migraines and insomnia. I became bulimic because I had such control issues, right? I mean, gosh, every level and layer and depth of shadow that I held with inside of me was getting triggered to be released, and it triggered in crisis moments of what we would call in human terms disease, right? And manifested in what we usually go to a doctor to seek westernized help for. And so that was the first experience. And then after I cleared and started to shift a lot of that density within my physical body, it went to the emotional body, and I had to work on the pendulum swing of the emotional field and learn how all of the emotions that could trigger me from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows were all just a language for me to see more clearly what I was co-creating in my life. And then finally went into my mental field, that 5D reality. You said in the opening, you know, we're here and we're starting to connect in different ways. You know, we're sitting down in our stylist's chair in the salon, and I'm thinking things that she then begins to speak out loud to me. So, I mean, we're seeing this all the time. We're experiencing it. And so that's a bit of how I got triggered into it. I'd love to hear some of yours. Let's see. Can you hear me?
Apologies.
Woohoo!
Apologies. Thank you, Genesee. I actually muted myself in respect of better sound quality, so I apologize for that. As you opened the YouTube live stream, if you can make note, I do not have access to it when it's opened by you. Joy Jackson has given us some feedback that everything appears to be streaming well, and I just don't have the ability to respond to her. So the chat room is open to you. I want to address a little bit of the sensory feedback I have received. And as an intuitive and medical intuitive coach and trainer and teacher, it's part of my curriculum, it's part of my work, to bring out the latent intuition in all those that I work with, to remind them I'm not your guru. Don't come to me for all of your answers unless you also seek that I show you that you have all of them to begin with. And I'm very fervent and very firm about that being the bottom line. All of us have access to it. It's just a matter of, number one, being educated that that's true, and number two, having compassionate way showers that are not interested in building their own ego, but rather redirecting you back to the wisdom that you all have. So I want to start just by saying that I've been very blessed to get a lot of feedback from those that I serve, those that I work with, those that I train. And there has been a lot of commentary about a couple of physiological sensory experiences. Number one, and many of you will be familiar with this, in the world of form, we are influenced by the world that does not have form, but is very alive, very intelligent, and very active. 95% of the known and measurable universe is not visible to most of us most of the time. And most of it is also at least 73 to 77% dark energy. So it doesn't even have matter in it. I hear often many are hearing frequency shifts. And now that we are, as our solar system and as our Earth, in perfect alignment with the center of the Milky Way galaxy, which really began around 2012 with all the prophecies leading up to this pivotal point in the great year, people are hearing all kinds of things auditorially. There are ringing in the ears, there's constant buzzing, there's voices being picked up on, and I believe that this is your first wake up. This is the exciting news with how weird and how unsettling this can be. I believe that this is a tremendous part of humanity's shift into becoming more clairaudient. It is waking up intuitively through a more active pineal gland, and thereby also awakening inner ear at a much higher intelligent and energetic level, the ability to hear things that are not immediately associated with what we see. So many have said they're hearing things, they're hearing voices, they are hearing what someone's about to say before they say it, which is exactly what telepathy is, and an extension of clairaudience. If you're having this experience, go to our chat room. We want your feedback. We want to talk about it. And we also want to talk about how to enhance it and how to navigate it with greater ease so that it isn't unsettling, because it can be unsettling if you don't know. Many of you have been scouring the internet and popular television and film and independent media. there was a very profound, and I would endorse, short-term mini-series on Netflix that was called Sense8. And Sense8 is a really gorgeous celebration of humanity and all of its diversity, but it goes into the concept that Homo sapiens are not the only kind of life form here on this planet, and that many of us have the ability to be Homo sensorium. It's kind of written like science fiction, but I want to tap into the fact that every single one of us has access to that sensory perception, to all of that sensory connection and embodiment. So if you're hearing things, let's talk about what that means to you and how it's affecting you. If you are starting to notice that your physical body is more sensitive to locations and fields, let's talk a little bit about what that is. If your diet has changed and what you can digest and what you couldn't digest before, and even your hunger has changed, let's talk about how better to utilize that, because that's become a very large comment that's made. And then their audience, their visual, clairvoyance, and the ability to be able to see what isn't there, having loose boundaries around the parameters that we have that help us see this is symmetry around a window or a door. That is the solidity of my vehicle, solidity of my body. Many of it is not a concise sense of boundaries around physical realm. And we want to support your experience. So let's get a little bit into the dialogue. How many chapters in Genesis so that we can be answering some questions.
Okay, so I'm going to have to log into that. I have 10 different windows. So let's just see. I've got the pre-show, which if any of you are watching live on YouTube, we do have a wonderful pre-show where we get together as a collective and do some collective work before the show airs. So I've got that open. So give me a minute to get into the YouTube back end and see if I can access that. And then the only thing is, because we didn't shift it, I might not be able to get into that, but I'll take a look and see. So I'd like to know, Tatiana, because you've mentioned clairvoyance, clairaudience, not yet clairsentience, and, you know, all the other clairs. We've got about 5 or 6 of them out there. So I'd like to know when, because the ringing in the ears is the one you went into most detail about. So I have a feeling this has been a big part of your path. So can you tell us when it first started happening to you, what would trigger you? Were there any physical, environmental shifts that happened as well with that? What kind of things did you do to better integrate the frequencies as they were coming in, or some of your processes around that?
Thank you, Genesee, and we will work the technology as the technology is cooperative with us. We've decided not to make enemies with our technology. So if at any time my volume doesn't sound good, let me know. If you can mute while I'm talking, I think we might get less feedback. Perfect. Okay. So, you know, the truth is the ringing in the ears has been going on most of my life, but so have being more attuned to being clairaudient and hearing and seeing things. And I get that to myself. So for the many of you out there where this is not new, it might be heightened, it might be more exacerbated, but it's not new. You know that you've kind of worked out a method to deal with it. Maybe you've ignored it. Maybe you've stopped and paused and kind of, you know, cupped your ear and decided to go into silence just to see whether or not you can make sense out of static or be able to embody some of the flows that are moving through you because they feel like they're anchoring in you. Maybe you sit and you ask your guidance and go into automatic writing. I'm going to put out there that many of you already know how to better utilize having more sensitivity to wave and frequency, as we are in a much thinner veil where wave and frequency is always data. It's always data. There's not any wasted wave or frequency. Wave and frequency is the essence of the creative universe as divinity birthed it. So if you're hearing things that aren't in the room, it isn't that they're not in the room. It means that they are not visible to you in the room. Between your cones and rods and the way that our brain works, we see less than 5% of what the measurable universe says is there. So you're picking up on energy frequencies, intelligent beings, entities, interdimensionals, extraterrestrials, yes, the discarnate, and potentially even getting some divine data downloads from your higher self, which Genesee and I are really going to elaborate on in Ascension series that you have full access to. It's called your interdimensionality. Very often, many of my clients are discovering that their greatest guides coming online right now are themselves, which is really exciting. It's you in a much higher iteration, you beyond that veil. It isn't a you that you need to achieve. It's a you that already exists. Why? Because time is in the ever-present now, and the divinity that created us is the divinity that is us. So all divinity is present here. All divinity is present now. And we took on veils of dimensionality and veils of forgetfulness so that we could experience this individuation from such a raw, edgy, and equally illuminating, adventurous platform. So I want to just kind of pass the talking stick back to Genesee at this point. We're paying attention to the chat room. We want your feedback. What recent divine data downloads have you received? Have you been able to decode them? How can we better support you in decoding them and be able to make sense of them? Genesee, your thoughts.
Do I get to answer this as well? So, and again, like I kind of stated in the beginning, this is such a process. And when I work with people, one of the things that comes through a lot is people want to develop these gifts and talents more, right? So they want to be more clairvoyant, they want to be more clairaudient, and they want to trust in what they feel, or that claircognizance where it's just an instant knowing, that gut reaction. And so to me, in working with individuals and helping people to understand through my own experiences and how I had to open up to this work more fully, number one, it's all about trust. And people don't like hearing this because trust is something that we get no validation on, and you have to completely surrender, completely trust, and have almost a release of expectations in how these gifts and these talents and these extrasensory connections are going to come in. And so to me, anyways, it's really building that authentic trust with yourself. And how I did that was through meditation. And again, people don't like hearing this because meditation is work. It's like anything. It's like working out. You know, you have to find the style of meditation that works for you. Just like working out on a treadmill works for one person, and, you know, going swimming in an ocean or a river or a stream works for another person. You really first, I think, have to find a way to sit with yourself once you're starting to experience things like lucid dreaming and these downloads, the auditory downloads that come in. If you're starting to get peripheral connections where you see a flash and then it's gone and you actually have to look because you could have sworn somebody was right there. So all of these connections are basically ringing the doorbell on your spiritual doorstep saying, hey, take the time. It's time to connect with yourself, get in resonance with what's happening, and explore. Because I think, like we've discussed a lot of times, you know, there's so much coming at us, not just in these divine data downloads, but trying to also pull us out of this clarity. And you know, as connected as it is in the divine light, we're getting that kind of same density sometimes coming in. And so we really have to keep this harmony and balance and this connection to our authenticity. And to me, that always came through with going into some form of meditation. And I used to sit for hours with closed eyes and do my meditative work to get the clarity, the answers on what I was experiencing in these different clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, all of these different clairs. But now, because I have basically an understanding and a language of all of this extrasensory data, I can walk in a connected way in nature and have these things come in and trigger me, and know, because I did the work and I really attuned myself with my own language, and I just started trusting. You know, it was always seeking outside of myself, books or mentors to validate what I was experiencing. And then at some point there comes a moment in life where you have enough of the tools, you have enough of the language, the structure, that you have to bring it back to your own core channel, your own authenticity, and say, now how does this work for me? And then you just have to surrender and trust that the synchronicities you're receiving and the ear ringing to you might mean, hey, let's stop for a moment, breathe, and just see what happens. So you really then have to get all of your ducks in a row outside of yourself and then bring it back to this divine temple you're working with and figure out, what do I do with this information for me, right? And start letting yourself and your own experiences validate. Oh, so I'm going to throw it back. I muted before I threw it back.
Genesee, I'm looking at our chat room, so I'm looking at our activity, and we have got Joy talking about that stimuli and the density that has, you know, been able to kind of break through for her and create more of that extrasensory perception. Danny made a point that I was just about to make, and I think that everyone in our chat room can probably concur. If we don't ask to understand, we are often left kind of like evolutionary children with our hands and palms up, not really certain how to use the information. Mm-hmm. There is tremendous riches in the wisdom that is all around us that a good majority of the population doesn't even think to ask because they're in a comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And when we ask, just as much as scripturally, many of us have heard, anything you ask in faith, anything that you ask with the faith of a mustard seed, but ask with unwavering faith, to bring open, to crack open the windows of heaven, if you will. I'm using some very Judeo-Christian kinds of terms, but having studied the mystery schools, I'll tell you, they use this very powerful cryptic language rather often. We have to ask. If you are hearing a ringing in the ears or a pulse, or you're experiencing voices, there is a reason why you're receptive at that moment. I do not believe that it's errant. I believe that you are dialed into a frequency that is beyond your visual acuity. It's beyond what is in front of you if you can't see it. And it is testing your telepathy and your clairaudience. Because as a fourth dimensional graduating into fifth dimensional being, that will be a constant state of dialing in and tuning out. Dialing in and tuning out. I do believe that we will have some degree of filters in that fourth and fifth dimensional state so that we don't fry our circuitry when we are focused on key aspects of our work and our purpose, as our lives will be just as purposeful, if not fundamentally more purposeful in that fourth and fifth dimensional state. But to be able to really get our circuitry that is part of our physiology and really truly the integration between this 3D state evolving into fourth and fifth and above. We'll talk about more about above and who may feel inclined towards above. We need to test the waters. We need to try on the mechanisms, and we need to integrate the new software. I hate using too many technological terms, but it is like learning how to walk in the realm of the great clairs. And so stop when you have these experiences and listen and ask. You may feel compelled to just go into a meditative trance. You may choose to tune everybody out in the room and go stand in a corner. You know, sometimes we have to do our best when there's crowds. You may choose to get into a prayer space. You may go into automatic writing, or, you know, start talking into maybe one of the recording devices in your iPhone. But use that moment, because that is an opportunity to integrate your clairaudience and your telepathy that is going to help you with others, supporting others when their thoughts have never been gauged, their thoughts have never been corralled properly, and they are inadvertently, accidentally not aware that they are vomiting all their thoughts on you and that you can hear them. and the compassion that's going to be required, because you've already worked through the awkwardness of this phase. You've already mastered this tool, and now you can show compassion for those that have not, is going to be profound and in demand. So your thoughts on this, our wonderful listening audience? I'm going to go to the chat room and see what others are saying. Joy says, as the planet rises in vibration, are vehicles attempting to bring us up to speed? Oh, Joy, absolutely. Absolutely. We are quickening. And the frequency that most of us have been holding on to, for those of you that are paying attention to brainwave states and have any training in it, or are paying attention to maybe the Earth Watchmen and other Watchmen groups that are available on YouTube and elsewhere, the shamanic resonance of the Earth has gone through very significant spikes. I'm going to be cautious and not use terms that are going to get certain aspects of our scientific community arguing with us, saying it isn't rising, it isn't rising. There are those that are saying that it isn't. I think that common sense and the layperson's application of science, paying attention to the shamanic resonance and recognizing that most of June we experienced some very wonky days. Any of you that are sensitive that are in the chat room, speak up. If you woke up and said, what is wrong with me today? What is going on with this sphere? The density is off. I am feeling pressure in my body. I am fatigued. I am feeling suspended states of not having a construct around my reality. The shamanic resonance would spike well over 40, which is the highest numerical value on the graph, and go well into 50 plus hertz for up to 6 hours at a time. Folks, that would have been a wild ride for any of us. And the more sensitive of us would have felt it even more profoundly. So I'm looking,
Can I ask?
Is in agreement.
Can I ask
Yes.
what you experienced? Because I am so blessed to have a really amazing collective here in Ohio. And I know that weekend that happened. And so I'd love to hear what you experienced during those spikes.
I've got Earth Changes. I want to say he's made a comment, raising the shamanic resonance. So again, thank you, Earth Changes. Thank you for being in my sentience. Thank you for hearing my thoughts and feeling my feelings and knowing what we wanted to talk about today. You are spot on. This just shows that there is a community building and that we're actually becoming more sensate to each other. You mentioned it used to be around 7.8 hertz. Think yellow sun, correct? We once had a yellow orangish sun. We have a white sun now, but now it's ever increasing, and it went through a range of 12, 15. And yes, Earth Changes, it went higher. I'm very privileged to be friends with Michael Bradbury, who has been the Earth Watchman for 16 years, and he's been on YouTube for just going on 10. And what he has in terms of a complete site is amazing. Hope Sievers says, and yes, this month is going to be even bigger. I will tell you what, it's been a little quiet on the shamanic resonance if you're paying attention to the monitoring and measurement equipment that has been made available. But that is not anything other than, in my mind, perhaps the calm before the storm. What happens to us? So what happened to me? I will be honest and say, for those of you that are listening, those of you in the chat room that are eager to share, when the shamanic resonance was soaring, I knew. I literally had a profound stop and make awareness that this is what all esoteric teachings meant when they said, be still and know that I am God, or be the witness and sense your own divinity. I'm going to tweak that languaging a little bit. It is the moments to stop being involved in the busyness. Why? Because the 3D lives that most of us, not all of us, but most of us are living right now have nothing to do with the fourth, fifth, and potentially sixth dimensional aspects of our interdimensionality that we are bridging with right now, that we are going to be more permanently inhabiting going forward. It isn't going to be the running around for the carpools. It isn't going to be running in and out of grocery stores, ordering on Amazon. I'm guilty. Taking off to take care of another client, making another phone call, arguing with the credit card bill that ended up having a charge you didn't intend. Think about the madness of 3D. Think about the insane busyness that has been created in our technological 2018 age. Now, when we have those moments where Schumann resonance is soaring, she's well above gamma. The most experienced brainwave experts that are cutting edge all over the world right now are saying that they're discovering higher brainwave states. but they were never before able to be perceived with our instrumentation. So what does that mean? Now that we know that we've got the alpha and the beta, and we've got, you know, delta when we're in a deep sleep state, theta, which is active meditation and dream state, and then we looked at gamma, which is, you know, above 20 hertz. They're now looking at epsilon in higher states. So of course it's going to continue with that Latin, you know, vernacular, but it is telling us we're capable of brainwave states that science never knew we were capable of before, and that we can hold them for suspended periods of time. That will be required as we move up in dimensionality. That will be required for telepathy to claim all of our clairs. So when these moments happen, how did I manage them? How can you manage them? Be still. Ask for more information. Take that as a gateway, because it is. It's a veil into your interdimensionality. If you can, I've got a wonderful little copper pyramid that will comfortably house 2 people laying down, or 4 people all bunched up together in meditation. That is an ascension vortex portal tool that I use. If you can stop in those moments and get into your most lucid state, you're going to get divine data download. My favorite term for being in touch with spirit. And it is available to every single one of us. When that resonance spikes, Mother Earth is forcing our resonance to spike, because we are always seeking homeostasis with her. We are always seeking resonance with her. As long as we are on this sphere, we are going to be moving at her resonance, or we're going to leave the sphere because we can't maintain it. So folks, what are you experiencing? I'm hearing earth changes is in agreement. It's about raising our vibration. Beautiful, yes. We're dealing with the planets changing, spinning faster. Joy is talking about photonic waves coming. And I believe that that's part of the great year. Yes, Joy, it's part of the ascension process. We were told by Sheldon Neidl and others, you're becoming a galactic human, back in the 90s, that we were going to go through a photon belt. I believe that Corey Good and all the work that he has done in supporting David Wilcock and Cosmic Disclosure has talked about this photon belt, that has talked about this range, or this bandwidth, that is a sense of maybe grace, if you wanted to see it in a more poetic and spiritual way, that it is having a huge impact on bringing up our vibration, and it will actually force shift our vibration. It's just better that we lean into it and we work cooperatively with it. There, Danny, beautiful. Yes, be still, ask, listen. It has been the most profound, consistent message, whether you're Buddhist, Hindu, Hermetic, you're a Zoroastrian follower, you're involved in Egyptology, you're a Gnostic Christian. All of these faiths talk about witnessing, being still and witnessing your divinity. Be still and know that I am God. So many of you that are in the chat room, I'm going to let Genesee speak and be silent for a moment. What are you doing to be able to bridge these moments of greater lucidity when the veil and grace is open?
So first, Lynn in our pre-show chat rooms. So Lynn said, thank you so much for giving her the information about the ringing in the ears. She said she's had it for years and hasn't understood. So it was such validation, which is what this Ascension series is all about. So thank you for sharing that.
Said it, sister.
And can I just bring it human here for a minute? Because when this happened, and we were spiking, I had some of the most severe, I hold a pretty amazing homeostasis, right? I'm almost always the same frequency and vibration. So when something triggers and I get pulled out of balance, it usually hits me hard, but it doesn't happen often. And this started and it happened sequentially. 3 things physically happened to me when these spikes were happening. And I was having lunch with 2 very amazingly connected, enlightened people. And we were all talking about the throat chakra area, and how everybody either woke up with this sore throat, or it felt like there was energy compressing the throat, and just everything here was shifting first, is what it felt like. And then flash forward 24 hours, I woke up with the most severe headache, and it was mind splitting. And I'm someone who at 5 years old suffered from migraines, and this was that times 10. And to where I was debilitated. So I probably wasn't gonna slow down Tatiana. And so universe and divine was like, slow down, get on the couch, put a compress on, ice pack on the back, and you take your break today so you can integrate. And then we talked about, because right after this happened, you came out to Ohio, and we talked about, I had gotten up the day after. I had gotten up and my legs gave out. Do you remember this story?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had been writing a book, finishing editing a book, and I had been lying in a reclined position for I don't know, 30 minutes to an hour, so not a long time. I've done much longer writing sessions. And I got up and instantly my legs went out. I had no legs. It was as if I was paralyzed. I crippled down onto a glass table, and of course the human side of me was like, let's just get up, you can do this, it's just sleeping leg or dead leg. So I tried to wobble it out like a newly birthed horse, and found some balance and walked, and they gave out again. And I was terrified. I was like, what is happening to me? Thank God you came in, and a week later or whenever that was, and had some validation, and we were talking about the shifting DNA and the activations that have been happening.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you have those states, and I know that you are still nuancing them, but you have a lot more experience with managing them and utilizing them fully, Genesee. So I want to take that understanding of compassion that we need to have for our bodies when they're behaving a certain way, because Danny is asking, can we talk about accessing different versions of ourselves in the multiverse? And there will be a physical sensation that takes place. So I want to address this head on and merge these two conversations. When we are aware that what we feel in our physical bodies is only the last result, the last data point, where the buck, you know, where the rubber hits the road, that is the last place that we experience anything. And for a lot of humanity, that's the first time that they even notice something's wrong. And if they're feeling something sensory in their bodies, the average person in our not as awakened humanity, but ever awakening, so let's hold out positive words for them, they're going to go, what did I eat? How was my sleep? You know, have I been too stressed out? Could it have anything to do with my medications that I'm taking? Most will look at the realm of physiology and the physical world around them. When we're talking about interdimensionality and ascension, we're going to spend less time there. Both Genesee and I, and future guests that will continue to be on the show, we're going to talk about the 95% that you don't necessarily see with your physical eyes. So in marrying his question and his yearning for that multidimensional experience and what both Genesee and I have experienced and how it has a sensory impact, I'm going to talk about, I believe it was June 20th, the day that I had a massive, massive shift in consciousness that was not dissimilar from doing ayahuasca journeying, psilocybin journey, for which I have been both a shamanic host and a shamanic practitioner, that I experience with the greatest amount of sacredness and reverence for its use and its availability here on the planet, recognizing that that all things in correct balance have been made available for mankind and for all sentient life here on the planet. And I only phrase that because I want you to know, if you were to ask me straight up, do you believe that you have gone deeper with these tools? I would say unquestionably. Am I going to recommend it for you? That's up to you and your guidance and your higher self as your guidance. But my higher self as my guidance told me that I could expand my physiology if I was to do this. That is not what happened on June 20th. That is not what has happened in many, many meditative trance-like states that have happened since, because I believe that the photon belt and the lucidity of the veil and the thinness that's taking place is welcoming all of us if we are actively seeking to have that veil either drop or holes poked in it. So on this particular day, I was having a business call, and it swept over me, and I felt it everywhere. My spirit felt it. My mind immediately became aware that the entire sense of space-time around me shifted. I emotionally felt caught up and a little bit brought into a heart space where my heartbeat quickened. And then my physical body might have even gone through just a quick wave of perspiration and feeling all of my cellular intelligence at once, particularly areas that I maybe don't listen to as often. And I heard in the back of my mind, you need to get off the phone right now. And I said, okay, I'm going to get off the phone. I know what this is. How did this happen? I immediately asked. I didn't take anything. I haven't been fasting. What triggered this state of deep, powerful shamanic lucidity? And guidance said, you know, kind of not snarky, but a little bit, you know, a little bit with haste and jest and playfulness. Didn't you ask for this? And I went, yeah, that's right, I did. This is exactly what I wanted these states as often as possible. And it said, well, you're ready now. And I was told exactly where to go, and I needed to be outside and I needed to ground. That was very important. I was told where to go in my garden. I was told how to place my body. And the minute that I got in that position and closed my eyes, I left being exclusively in my physical address or my physical body or sphere. And I shot up into what I will tell each of you was sixth density. It was a six-dimensional version of myself, which is a guidance form for me. The sensation of leaving my body was very quick, very similar to what many NDEers and channelers and those that deal with blue spheres have talked about, where they know that they've moved and they don't feel relegated to the density of their physical body. If they were to jump back into their physical body would feel very heavy. It would feel very mud-like. It would feel like a tar baby to be in it. And so I left, and I was shown several different scenarios leading up to my experience and my embrace of a global ascension event, and how I wanted to play a role and what parts of my 3D choices were keeping me more in 3D and less in the ascension event, and possibly even frustrated by those that were not joining the 100th monkey effect and were delaying and dragging this out, and then being frustrated that it wasn't taking place faster because many are looking to escape. It was profound. I checked in with my body once, and I couldn't believe the position my body was in because I hadn't felt my body the entire time. It was as if I'd been held in stasis, and it was frozen. And it was not a natural position to have been left in, but it was a position I was told to hold. I was kind of wrapped around myself on a garden swing after I had grounded out. And then I made sure, no, my body's just fine. I'm not being eaten alive by mosquitoes. I'm not in the sun getting sunburned. My body's fine. And I went back to go join sixth dimensional realm, and then shot all the way into the infinite. And I will pause here because I don't want to go too deeply into what it is to go right into the eye of God. But I will tell you, it is accessible to every single one of us because we are that divinity, and it is simply us returning to original source code for which we are all fractalized. But the sensation is all encompassing. It is a spiritual wake-up call to, I'm having this experience. It is a mental awareness of, what do I do now to better utilize this experience? It's an emotional sense of buy-in where the heart starts to beat faster, and there's an excitement and a welcoming of that interdimensionality, and then the physical body has to almost shut itself down just a little bit, which is why we've always known that shamans go into stillness, native people in their sweat lodges and in their vision quests, and those that do plant medicine and those that deeply meditate go into stillness. You travel with greater speed and ease when we allow that to happen. So I hope that answers your question. And I know that Jenessee has had a similar experience that she speaks about in her book. So I'm going to go to the chat room. But Jenessee, why don't you share a little bit about that first journeying when you were taken by those guides? And I don't want to speak for you. Your story is phenomenal, moving through interdimensionality. Let's talk a little bit about the sensory experiences that some of our viewers may be experiencing following suit with you as well.
Yes, so I love this. Can you rephrase how he asked that question also from the comments?
I can. Let me go back into it. He said, can you talk about accessing different versions of yourself in the multiverse, which was my attempt just then and giving the most recent explanation. And he said, Jenessee spoke about this. How can we integrate those selves? So Jenessee, this is your stage. Please answer that question. You've got a beautiful story to share.
Okay, and so there was a second response to that, right? How do we integrate those once we actually expand? So that was a follow-up.
Yes.
Okay. So I love this too, because Tatiana, you and I have had, I'm just going to say the same, although they are extremely unique because we are each a very individualized vibration here, living within this reality. But you and I have both experienced the same thing. And when I listen to your story, I'm sitting here with like my popcorn going, ooh, I want that. Ooh, I want to have it like that. Ooh, I want to be, you know, the lightning bolt and the voice come in and to go lay in the garden. It's that, to me, I get so jealous in a good way of that, right? It sounds so powerful, or well, it is powerful. So mine was very boring. I'll start there. And not so lightning bolt from heaven-esque, or from divine. We'll go even higher. So the interesting component about my experience was I was on a path of intense meditation for a few years, and knew that meditation was going to be the key that unlocked everything for me. I resisted it my entire adolescence, although I always had that voice saying this is going to be what stops all the physical trauma, all the emotional trauma, and mental. And so when I finally started meditating, I'd go very deep, so deep that I would actually, my body would freeze, but my consciousness would still be active, and it'd be hard for me to come back into my body. And so, so I did this for probably 2 years, between 30 to 90-minute meditations almost every day. Not grounded, let me just say that. Very not grounded way to live. And then through that process, I started opening up very clearly my channel. I was following divine guidance or my intuitive internal guidance, and basically healed a lot of the density in my field, like I spoke earlier, through clearing my physical body, the emotional body, and then the mental body. And so it was a very elongated process. As soon as I did that, and basically my internal and external reality became, oh, we'll see. Tick tock, tick tock. Yeah, I think we're paused out for a minute. We'll just have to wait for it to kick back on. Okay, angels. I can hear it. So interesting. It went dead silence. Come on, angels, bring us back.
Joy, there you are.
Yay! Okay.
You were just in the juicy part, so bring that story right back.
Where were we cut? So I was in the mental field, maybe? Cleared physical, emotional, mental. And so it was a process. And so for me then, once I cleared each of those energetic bodies, and how I cleared it was simply by allowing density and the things I was, my belief systems, the patterns I was holding on to and creating in my life. I gave space for all of that density to greet me in my life. And then instead of repeating patterns and density, I would choose to elevate myself and use it as a tool and wisdom, part of the wisdom and reconciliation process for my soul coming back into completion here in this 3D realm. And so after this happened, I started channeling, automatic writing books, and had just completed a whole process of writing a book through channel, and thought I was done. And as soon as that book completed, I sat in my next meditation, ready to just dictate again through automatic writing, and was taken out of body. And it was very Star Trek, Next Generation, or even original, and it was as it was as cliche as it comes when you see all these movies. But it was the white streaming tunnels that moved through me, past me. There was an angel on this side, and there was an angel on this side, and it was exactly like this is, minus a physical body. And so I was completely my unique personality, and I was in complete control of what was happening, although I was very open to what was happening. I was excited and open, but it was no different than I sit in front of you right now, except for I didn't have the weight that I have now. I still had my vibration, my feeling, my humor, my joy, and I went out of body, and it was like a roller coaster ride. It was everything you see in sci-fi movies, and I started getting taken from that day, and then consecutively throughout that day, I was taken to visit my different timelines. We'll just call it my different timelines, my different to different planets where I had frozen my body or held my body in suspended animation so that I could have an easy cord to come back to that lifetime and witness in an astral space what I had co-created there, to bring that learning back to this consciousness here. And then the second part of the question, so how do you reconcile all of those aspects together, right? That's part 2 of the question from Daniel.
Yes. How do we make that home within us while still in 3D?
How do we make that home? That's such an interesting way to ask that question. So, right? That's beautiful.
Yes.
So for me, it was interesting because I visited 12 different aspects of myself on 12 different planets. And for some of those timelines or aspects of self that I visited, which again, let me just say, let's give different vernacular here. So I also could call this oversoul or the causal body. I was basically expanding into that plane of existence to tap into the multidimensionality of myself through all time space. And so in doing that, I had for, I think 8 out of those 12 timelines, I had actually, just by visually seeing, being back in that consciousness, and in that landscape, and seeing myself on that planetary existence and interacting myself interdimensionally, which, God, that could be a whole nother live talk, but I visited myself on those planets where I was still in existence sometimes and got to interact interdimensionally with myself, to which the other self knew this was happening. It's one of those mind trip moments. But so in that, sometimes just being there and reconciling those timelines in a conscious moment basically created a space of authentic connection within this 3D body that I will never lose that. Actually, consciously, mentally, it's hard for me to even go into the minutia or the detail of that, because it's now just a part of me. The wisdom of that, the gifts that I bring, the experience is all here with me, because I've reconciled that and all of those timelines now into this one conscious being that can be anywhere, any space, any time. I can leave my body. I could close my eyes right now and leave my body if I wanted to, because this is just a truth that I know I hold. And it took that first experience, which again I worked for. I sat and I worked and I cleared and I dealt with my SHIT and I did it all, right? So that I could be a clear channel to hold this ascension consciousness. And so that's part of what I love teaching and what I love to bring to people. And I know you too. I mean, you're teaching this, right? Coming up, you're basically teaching how to work with the grid and how to work the matrix, right, Tatiana? Don't you have a workshop?
I am, and I will touch on that real briefly, and then I want to share how you and I experienced a sensory experience when we got together in Ohio that many of our viewers are going to understand and be able to make sense of too. But let me just jump on that. Why am I teaching it? Guidance told me, I listened to guidance. Folks, I walked away from a very lucrative coaching career about 3 years ago and did exactly what guidance told me to do, self-funded. And it looked like financial suicide, but I knew why I was born. I knew what I came here to be. I remember being an adult soul in a little body, and you know, having to get lucid to the fact that you're going to just be a little girl for a little while. Enjoy it. Enjoy the swing. Enjoy the dress. Enjoy the shoes. Look around. Talk to the fairies and the sentient beings. And so when it came to this season of my life and guidance said, you need to write a book. Great. Now write a memoir. Now demonstrate to everyone else what their ability is to wake up to their sentience, to wake up to their lucidity, so that pineal glands will be made active at a larger scale, be one voice of many, but you'll have an impact. And then talk about it, teach it, get on a show and get real transparent and vulnerable about it. It was made very clear that that was important. So we had the first larger group teaching in April here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have another class coming up the 31st of August and the 1st and 2nd of September. And why are we teaching this? It isn't just to put out practitioners, even though that is a goal. If everyone gets a diploma, you can certainly use this as a profession. But when you wake up to the fact that you are not relegated to remote viewing and astral projection and distance healing are all the same math. They are all the same science. It's you exacting a practice of resonating with where you put your focus and attention. It's you being divinity in your awareness and in your focus. Why is this so important? Because if you need to be across the globe at a certain latitude and longitude, I can teach you how to go there. And we do it in class. If you need to go to create peace in Damascus, if you need to go and sit with a family member who has just experienced a loss of life and is in great pain, this is what the discarnate beings that do, that are angels, that are interdimensionals, that are extraterrestrials, they understand that where they focus their energy and attention with such clarity, they can run the grid in all of our multidimensional universe, and they can be there instantaneously. You are not relegated and stuck in your body. You have a silver cord, your body's going to sit here, you're going to go somewhere else. We can all do this. When we start using these tools, and why I teach them is to empower you to have them, so that you recognize that there's nothing that another human being on this planet that has achieved because of their discipline and the time and the painstaking practice that they put in, that you cannot achieve as well, and that you actually require at this time of human transition. We all need to be lucid and discerning. And the only way to be discerning is to wake up this intuitive prowess. And so that's part of my goal. One of the sensations, and I've just got to touch on this, while I was interdimensional on that June 20th day, I was told you need to contact Jenessee Roy. I know Jenessee only as well as she was referred to me to be a speaker by another colleague of mine who's Mount Shasta retreat that I've been promoting that's coming up the end of this month. It's going to be Mount Shasta during the 26th, 27th, and 28th and 29th, I believe. And I said, great, I trust your judgment. I had her on. She was lovely. We talked a little bit about running the grid at this level, and that was the end of the conversation. There was no further follow-up. And it said, you don't need to understand why. You'll understand why. It'll be made perfectly clear. And my sixth-dimensional self said, sure, yeah, whatever. No ego, no proprietary, my channel. No, it's my business. How will I handle all of the earth muck of an incorporated, nonprofit? How will I handle who's in charge of what? I didn't get defensive, protective, or proprietary. I just reached out and contacted her. It took me till Thursday. She'd been waiting for me since Monday. I said, do you hear this call? She said, yes, I've already given notice where I work. And it was just perfect symmetry. When I met Jenessee in Ohio, there was no question this is a soul sister I have known through the eternities. No question at all. We could not stop talking with such rabid engagement, enthusiasm, and beautiful marrying of ideals. We recorded the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
Fly on the wall probably just would have had a jaw drop. But we're going to be using some of this material. At one point, we started to talk about why there is adversity in the universe. And I started to share with her some of my experiences of having to develop mastery in dealing with dark energies, because the universe allows everything. Divinity allows everything. And we had to discuss what it is to experience a degree of navigating with it with skill and with respect and with caution, are developing mastery in those that run dark energy that we can and cannot see, and how they can have an impact on us. And while I was sharing that with her, the intensity of our sharing built to a crescendo that immediately began to impact the electricity in the suite that she had placed me in when I came to visit her. And the radio started, going off in some, crackling, and some frequency of a radio station was coming in that was partially music, partially someone talking. The lights went off all over, and she and I paused, looked at each other, and went, yeah. And she said, does this happen to you? And I said, yes, it does. And it happens with my clients in session. Folks, this isn't anything to be afraid of. This is nothing to be afraid of. This is nothing to woo-woo at. This is our interdimensionality poking holes through the veil and picking up on other resonant frequencies. So Danny, embracing your interdimensionality is to practice being interdimensional. You bring it back with you. And as you do it, you get much more comfortable in your skin. I hope that answers your question. I'll check the chat box. But Genesee, thank you for leading into that, because I think that that's another big sensory thing that everybody needs to get over being fearful of or awkward with.
Oh, yeah. I mean, have you had experiences? And I know we're coming to the end, so I don't know if we're going to keep going. It's 8:05. Are we going to keep?
Well, if anybody has any more questions, run them into the chat room tonight. Tonight was really introducing what are some of the sensory things we may be experiencing in our interdimensionality. We talked about lightheadedness. We talked about deep fatigue. When you're tired, folks, don't take another coffee. Don't drink some soda. Just lay down. It is the opportunity for you to go deep delta and get a big divine data download that will work itself out. If there's any way for you to take that 20-minute break from work, if there's any way for you to go and lay down during the day, this is a moment for divine data downloads. Take them. If you're experiencing hearing something, ask. If you're starting to see the loose boundaries around it, laugh. That is you realizing you're not relegated to this sphere. You are so much more. If you feel connected to another person, you might be being told. This is your internal telepathic wiring, getting really hot wired and fine-tuned. Reach out to them. This is who we are becoming in this transition into higher density. I'm just checking. Earth Changes says we're like rivers on the surface. We are all shiny and clear, shimmering with freshness and life, but deep within us runs powerful unseen currents of soul, memories, and desires. Ah,
wow.
Will you write a card?
I know, right,
Kit? Poetic.
This person paints. I know this person's tapped into right brain.
Go.
Yeah.
Earth Changes, and he is in an amazing grid vortex that he's been sharing with us on the chat thread. Everybody that's in our current viewership, check out the chat thread. It's been spectacular.
And so let's encourage. Yeah, I want to encourage everybody too, since we're kind of winding down. We had the most amazing connected pre-show today, and was able to just connect in a collective way to everybody who decided to jump on at 6:30, and we did a guided meditation, and it really, I think it really touched on a lot of this. How do we expand out, but then how do we be here in this 3D, and how do we expand out, and how do we bring it here? And Daniel creating that, not just a house anymore, right? It's a mansion inside. And so we'd love to encourage, go on the Facebook pages for Dr. Tatiana and myself, on our websites. We'll have the links. If you have any questions or need the link for the pre-show invite, you can also leave a message here on the chat board, and we'll make sure to get you and help you find that where those invitations are.
Thank you, Genesee. Yes, it is a mansion.
It's a mansion.
Think about everything we've ever heard. In my house are many mansions. Christ said when he was speaking about his Father's house. There are realms within realms, dimensions within dimensions, universes within multiverses. I've seen them. I've experienced them. They're astounding. And when you're in the vastness of the eye of God, I'll just say this much. There is the most acute clarity that each address, each node on this ever-connected web is just a choice of where you want to focus your energy. You chose to be here. You wanted to be here for this big show, for this grand crescendo and finale of the earth ascending into her higher degree of glory. And humanity needs you. It needs you to be just a little bit further down the road in embracing this interdimensionality and getting comfortable in your clairaudience and your clairvoyance, your clairsentience. There's many other Claires. In your ability to navigate your physical body, to self-heal, to project and run the grid and heal others, to hold them in the embrace of your spiritual lucid awareness, because you can travel there effortlessly when you feel that call. You're meant to be light warriors and light workers. There's no question, or you wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this dialogue. So we're here to support you in this. We recognize that it's true. And I'm just going to end with thanking every single one of you for being here. Each and every one of you, please come back. Please share more. Please share this message. We really want to bring others into the fold. No one should feel isolated during this challenging time. It's just too much to be left alone. And we always end Solutionary TV and the Ascension series with, please always remember, we are the solution. Thank you so much.
Thank you. With light and love.